Mordecai slowly woke again. He must have passed out after his little jaunt down the hall. The last thing he remembered was Rachel sitting beside him. The room was dark, but not like before. There was a small glow coming out of the light strips on the ceiling, and they were set to warm, so what little light came out of them wasn't harsh. It hit him that he wasn't alone, that someone else was in the room. He could hear their breathing. He looked to his left and then his right, and he saw Leland sitting in a wooden chair reading something on a tablet, whose screen's brightness had been adjusted to fit the room lighting. Mordecai reached out his hand and touched his brother's leg. "Hey," he said in the same raspy voice. The sudden touch and noise startled Leland. He lowered his tablet and looked over at his brother. "Hey, butt sniffer," Leland said softly, but warmly. "Oh God, I must be dying." "You're being nice, and you haven't called me that since we were kids," Mordecai said. Leland shook his head. "No, I call you that all the time. You just aren't around when I do." They both chuckled, and people say I'm the asshole one. Leland nodded. They are usually right about that. "Screw you," Mordecai said. Leland chuckled and lightly tapped him with his tablet. "Hey now, Ray says you have something to tell me." Mordecai adjusted himself in his bed, trying to sit up more, but he was struggling. Leland got up and helped him. "Thanks," Mordecai said. "No problem. However, if you need someone to help you wipe your ass, you're SOL," Leland said. Mordecai laughed, then winced. "Stop making me laugh. It hurts." "But yeah, it's about One Earth. They're fanatics." Leland nodded. "Yeah, I figured that one out on my own." Mordecai shook his head. "No, they're religious fanatics. They believe they are here as a mandate from God to return us and the rest of humanity back to the proper path under God." Leland's face soured. That was something he did not know, didn't even come to his mind. They kept it pretty well hidden all these months, too. Well, he trailed off. "Does it make that much of a difference?" Mordecai nodded. "Yes, it means this war will not be easy or quick, if it ever will be over." Leland sucked at his bottom lip as he thought about what Mordecai had just said. "Okay," he said. "What should we do?" "Well, diplomacy is out the window," Mordecai replied. "Yeah, you took it with you when you jumped out of it, Superman," Leland said. They both gave a faint laugh. "But seriously, it might be doable one day. But for now, it's just going to be a long road," Mordecai said. "Lots of sacrifices." "We could leave, you and me," Leland said, interrupting Mordecai. "We could try to get to one of the transport ships, take our chances out there on one of the other colonies. It is you and I they are after. If we leave, the people left behind will have a better chance of negotiating." "No," Mordecai replied back. "I don't think it would change anything, or give them any better chance. Besides, they are out there on the other colonies. Even if we turned ourselves in now, it doesn't change what they want to do here. We have to send them the clear message. You might outgun us, you might kill us, but we aren't going to make it easy for you." "Kai," Leland said, pausing for a second, "you are asking a lot from people, asking them to do things we left behind. Maybe the right thing to do at this moment is to either run or turn ourselves in." "Lee, she said after she was done with you and me, she'd go after Aiden and Alicia. Do you think Rachel would be safe without us? Or any of our kids or anyone's kids?" Leland chewed on his bottom lip a bit. He knew what Mordecai was saying was right, but he also felt he could stop this. "And they are safer with us waging a war?" Mordecai scoffed. "I'm not asking any of them to fight with us." Leland shook his head. "But you didn't give us and them much of a choice." "You two always arguing," Rachel said, standing in the doorway. She had walked in on them without them realizing. "You might not want to hear my opinion on this, but I expect you to shut up long enough to let me speak it." They both looked at each other and nodded at each other. "You have the floor," Leland said to his daughter. She walked further into the room and put her hands on the footboard and leaned in. "When you both came to me and asked if longevity was a good thing, I didn't think it was, but I trusted in both of you and went with it. When it was time to leave Earth and eventually the Sol system for the first extraterrestrial colony, I didn't think that was a good idea either, but I went because I trusted both of you. Same with coming here. I liked the life I had built back on Hestia, but I trusted the two of you. I love my life here. I am now being asked to fight for it. I think it is a better thing to do than to die an old, fragile woman to appease someone's imaginary friend." I'm sorry, Father. I love you, but Kai is right on this, and I will follow him wherever he takes us. If that means my death, then it will have some meaning. I won't live in a world where my existence is dictated by ignorance and controlled by fear. The two brothers solemnly looked at each other. Mordecai was proud of his niece at this moment. Leland was proud of his daughter. But he was fighting mixed emotions. Even though his pride in her was swelling, his fear at the thought of losing her was also growing. Suddenly, the lights in the room turned bright red and began to pulsate, and a voice filled the room. It was Bert's. Emissary troops moving in from all around. 23 clicks out. Leland stood and looked over at Rachel. Help me. We got to get everyone out of here. Mordecai was already getting out of bed. He didn't feel much better than he did before, but with Leland's help this time, he could make it. My shirt and vest, Mordecai said. They had to be disposed of. We'll have to try to find some on the way out, Rachel said. They began to head down the hall. Rounding the corner, there was Bert with a wheelchair. We got to go like 10 minutes ago, Bert said. They tripped one of my sensor nets on the edge of the property. They're all around us, a few thousand of them. I don't think they're here for tea and crumpets. They helped Mordecai into the wheelchair, turning it around, and started heading to another part of the compound. What's the plan? Leland asked. No one responded right away. Finally, Bert replied, We can probably make it to one of the wild valleys near the mountains if we hurry. Moving 400 people fast is going to be a problem, as this place defenses will not hold up long. They will buy us some time, but not much. All right, send out the word. We are traveling light and fast to the mountains, Mordecai said. They rounded another corner, straight into their fate. Colonel Lee Wei looked through his binoculars. They were 20 kilometers out from the compound. One of their advanced scouts tripped a sensor trap. The place was better equipped than any of them had suspected. This was the second time that the Ladronans had surprised him with their technology he didn't believe they had or used. He had stopped the advance to see how the Ladronans would react. It was like watching squirrels reacting to a new threat. They were moving equipment and people to vehicles. The compound itself would be a bit of a trouble. It had defensive capabilities they didn't see in their aerial photographs or orbital scans. It was the third surprise the Ladronans had managed. It had a blade of armor like their personal armor. One of the scouts reported something that looked like a tank. Colonel Lee Wei squeezed the binoculars hard. He was a soldier, wanting to fight a proper war. Of all the worlds he had liberated in the last 800 years of his service to One Earth, these Ladronans were the first to give him a taste of one. Not since Hestia had they met resistance that could actually delay them. He was both excited and a bit saddened by the inevitable attack. It would almost certainly be what he was craving, but it would also be short lived, nothing more than a tease. He pulled his communicator from his vest, touched a button on the side. It clicked on. Apostle, this is Angel 5. Sit rep, over. The communicator crackled a bit. There was a storm rolling in from the east, so communications with their space fleet was slightly interrupted. After a few moments, without any reply, he tried again. Apostle, sit rep. Again, another crackle over the communicator, then a few loud thumps, and Captain Morrow's voice came over. Gel 5, move position. The voice of Captain Morrow said. Please repeat. You're breaking up. Over. Colonel Leeway replied with annoyance in his voice. Oh, moment, Captain Morrow said. Colonel Leeway waited for about 30 seconds, his patience growing thin. He clicked his communicator again. Apostle, I need a sit rep now. A burst of static came over his communicator, causing him to wince. Angel 5, this is Apostle Actual. Can you hear me now? Over, Captain Morrow said. Leeway smirked. Affirmative. Apostle, sit rep. Another crackle of static, but not as loud or intense as the first one, came over the communicator. We are about 5 minutes from optimal firing range, but the Apostle of Redemption is having trouble cutting through the atmospheric disturbance caused by the incoming storm. I've launched stealth fighters from the Good Shepherd to take up position in the upper atmosphere to improve incoming telemetry. With how close you are, we won't want to miss. Leeway nodded to no one in particular. No, Captain, we wouldn't want that. Report to me immediately when you are in position with the Apostle. Acknowledge, Angel 5. Wait 1, Captain Morrow said. Leeway put his communicator back into his battle vest. He brought the binoculars back up and looked at the compound. Soon the Apostle of Redemption would unleash a barrage from the main battery that would unleash a powerful plasma blast equivalent to a few kiloton nuclear bomb of the old days upon the compound. Leeway doubted their shielding could withstand such a blast, and he would have gotten 2,000 good men and women out of bed for nothing. A small part of him hoped that after the dust cleared and he looked back down on the compound, that it would still be there. Chances of that would be astronomically high, but he had lived for 800 years and he has seen such odds played out before. Through his binoculars, he could see the Ladronans had stepped up their evacuation prep. There were more bodies out of the compound loading up vehicles. The poor bastards were about to be vaporized out of existence and weren't even aware of it. He silently prayed that God would take mercy on their souls and forgive them and him. When he was done with his prayer, his radio crackled. He lowered his binoculars and pulled out his communicator again. Angel 5, this is the Apostle. We are in position and we are getting good telemetry from your ground forces being relayed to our fighters. The primary battery is charged and ready. Captain Morrow's voice said flatly. The burden of a soldier, Leeway thought, as he took one last look at the compound. Glory to God, he said. Glory to God, Captain Morrow replied back. Leeway held his breath for a moment. The excitement built up inside him. Fire! He yelled out. A few seconds later, the night sky turned bright yellow, brighter than during high noon. The clouds violently parted, and a ball of yellow plasma descended through the heavens towards the compound. Mordecai was being wheeled down a corridor. There was a panic all around them. Their little resistance had grown quite a bit in the hours since the attack on the barracks earlier. Word spread quickly about what One Earth's plans were for the population of Ladrana. Now the entire place was in a panic. They barely had gotten here, and now they were being surrounded by a couple thousand troops. Bert was talking about something while looking down at a small tablet in his hands. Mordecai could barely hear him over the commotion of the people loading equipment into crates and boxes and moving them hurriedly to vehicles. They've stopped, Bert said. Stopped? Why? Leland asked. He stopped pushing the wheelchair. The group stopped with them. No idea. They stopped about 20 kilometers out, he said. Everyone looked at each other with a bit of confusion. Why had they stopped? Then the ground started to shake. It wasn't an earthquake, it was something else. It was like standing next to a train as it sped past at a station platform. Rachel's long hair started to lift up. Mordecai also noticed the hair on his arm began to stand up too. The entire corridor and the air around them felt like they were being electrified. The entire compound was like this, not just the corridor. Everyone fell silent, looking around. It was an eerie silence, the kind you get right before getting some bad news. Mordecai's stomach began to tighten up. He felt nauseous. Whatever was going on, it was like nothing any of them had ever experienced. The air became hot. The ground shook hard. The corridor exploded around them. The ground shaking knocked everyone down and Mordecai out of the wheelchair. He felt hands on his shoulder and looked up. It was Bert. He was pulling him into a room and was yelling at everyone to follow. He heard Leland scream out. He quickly scanned around to look for him. He was on the ground. Rachel was at his side. He was laying in some blood, a large piece of metal rebar sticking out of his stomach. First aid kit, he heard her screaming out as she frantically put her hands on his stomach and pressed down. The air once more became electrified and the ground began to rumble again. The air heated up and more of the corridor exploded and the walls let out a scream under the stress of whatever just hit them. Rachel threw herself over her father's body to shield him from flying debris. Without any time to recover, it happened 2 more times. The power in the compound at this point was intermittent. The corridor they were in was blown to pieces. There was little to no covering on the walls, exposing the rebar and other structural elements. Rachel was still lying on top of her father, but now she was injured. Her back was torn up by the flying debris. The panic around them from before was now replaced with pure chaos. People were running down the corridor without direction. Mordecai fought against Bert's grip. Let me the hell go, he finally said. Don't be stupid, Bert replied back. Mordecai pulled hard away from him, and Bert let go. He struggled to stand, but with a surge of adrenaline, he was able to stand and get his footing. Here, Bert said, holding up a small field first aid kit. He clicked his tongue and smiled. Never leave home without it. Mordecai took it and nodded at him without saying a word. Bert nodded back. He stumbled out of the room at first, but was able to make it to Rachel and Leland in the corridor. He fell down beside his brother, looking face to face with Rachel. She was still conscious. She saw him and got up off her father. She checked him over real quick, then she stopped. She put her finger to his throat and then her ear to his chest. She quickly shot back up, her face filled with horror and sadness. Save him, she screamed at Mordecai, her voice filled with terror, something he had not heard from her since she was 5 and in pigtails. He's not breathing. Mordecai frantically opened up the small first aid kit. It was mostly gauze and little vials of sedatives and stimulants. He didn't see anything that could help him resuscitate Leland. Bert! Mordecai yelled out. Bert stepped out of the room that they were in. He saw them on the ground and ran towards them. He quickly looked over Leland. He pulled out his tablet, opened up an app on it. Waving it over Leland, he gave a sigh of relief. He's alive, just passed out. Come on, help me. Bert stood and grabbed one side of Leland. Mordecai stood, still a bit shaky, grabbed the other side. Rachel helped him, but she was hurt herself. She didn't let it faze her as they carried her father into the room. There was a couch and table. They carried Leland over to the couch. Once they laid him there, Rachel turned to Mordecai and grabbed him by his shirt and got in his face. I'm going to find Alicia and Aiden. You don't let him die, she said. You understand me? He doesn't die. Fighting back tears, Mordecai nodded. Yes, I won't leave his side. She let go of him. Her face contorted and her lip quivered for a second. Right. Without another word, she turned and headed into the chaos. Bert spoke up. It's not good. Mordecai turned to him. He was holding a tablet. 40% of the compound is, he trailed off. It's just gone. Everything outside, gone. They hit us with something from orbit. What? Mordecai said in shock. How many still alive? Bert finished his sentence. I don't know. Power is fluctuating throughout the compound. I can't get an exact figure, but I'm seeing at least 70. Bert, you said there were like 400 people here, Mordecai said in shock. I know, he said. But we can make those bastards pay. They're above us by 1,200 kilometers. I got the power back to the railguns and silos. Shall I return the favor in kind? Mordecai suddenly heard Leland's voice in his head. What good would it do? Surrender. Save who's left. He slightly turned to make sure Leland hadn't woken up and was talking, but he was still out. The decision was his. He made a mental note that after all this was over, he was going to have a talk with Bert and Andre about having built all this. It wasn't against any laws they had on Ladrana, but it was disturbing how well prepared they seemed to have been. Make it rain, Mordecai said. Bert smirked, looked back down to his tablet, hit a few buttons. It's time to kiss the donkey.